Welcome to Curiosities of Teaching and Learning, a podcast hosted and produced by the Collaborative for Teaching and Learning, a changemaker in education since 1994.
Hello, and welcome to the fourth episode of Crushing COVID in the Virtual Classroom, a podcast brought to you from the Collaborative for Teaching and Learning. So we've been reaching out to teachers all across the country, really wanting to hear their voices about how they are responding to teaching and learning during this unprecedented time in our educational history. So it is our hope with this series that we elevate those teacher voices and really celebrate teachers as the leaders and the pioneers that we know them to be. And I'm Ashley Perkins, and I'm going to be your host today for this podcast. And I'd like to welcome our guest, joining us from Lexington, Kentucky, fifth grade social studies teacher, Donnie Piercey.
Hello.
Hey, Donnie. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your super busy schedule to join us, because what I know about you is that you have 29 fifth grade students that you're responsible for daily, in addition to 3 of your own at home.
Three kids of my own that feel like 29 additional when you're trying to teach 29 virtually. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's already warned me if you hear any screaming or hollering in the background, it's just one of those 3 munchkins running around. So I just want to say thank you, because I know you're super busy. But I'm really excited to hear about your approaches to teaching and learning during this time. But before we get started, I do want to talk about the baseball cap you're wearing. What's going on? I'm all dressed up fancy, like did my hair.
Yeah. So, with everything being closed, as much as I'd like to show off my quarantine do that I have on under here, I just figure for the best interest of everybody, I'll just wear a baseball hat. So there you go. My wife and I have kind of joked that as soon as they announced that things are going to be open back up again in Kentucky, we're going to invest in great clips on the stock market, because something tells me that first week it's going to go through the roof. But
yeah, I suspect that's true. Yeah. So to kind of kick us off and to kind of paint a picture for our listeners, could you describe for us, first of all, your experiences in education, because they're deep and wide, and then also kind of what your classroom, your students, your space looks like.
Sure. So, my name is Donnie Piercey, a fifth grade teacher. I've been teaching for 13 plus years now. I don't know if you can count this quarantine time as half a year, but we'll round it to about 13 years teaching. My first 4 years that I taught fourth grade. But for the last, 8 plus years, I've been teaching fifth grade, and I've taught all subjects. My specialty is social studies. I do a lot of work with, in addition to my classroom, I do a lot of work with the Google Earth education team. So kind of social studies and how it ties into geography is kind of one of my specialty areas. In addition to that, I also do some work with National Geographic that I just realized I'm wearing a bandana of theirs on there. I didn't mean to plug that too much, but there you go. But yeah, so 13 years teaching in the classroom, and I've always tried to, from the start, just try to look for innovative practices, innovative tools that I can bring into my instruction, not necessarily just for that flash wow factor, but for those different things that can really augment or improve the education of my 29, 30, 1 year I had 32 students. So as far as doing stuff digitally that we're doing in this, remote quarantine, distance learning time, I'm kind of happy that first month of the school year back in August, when we were first getting started, that, I took a couple of weeks. Hey guys, make sure you know how to log in at home. Make sure you have access. Make sure that you're able to access this, this activity, this worksheet, this project, because we will be using this stuff throughout the year. Granted, back in August, I didn't realize that, in the midst of COVID-19, how, much we'd kind of be, I'd be able to, have a kind of a big perk that goes along with that. But it's definitely been very different over the last month that we've been off.
One of the things you talked about was working for National Geographic. And just because I think it's so fascinating, can you tell our listeners, like, one of the cool adventures that you recently got to do?
Sure. So back in 2018, so that was 2 years ago, I was kind of accepted to be what's called a Grosvenor Teacher Fellow. Basically, every year, National Geographic selects between 35 and 40 teachers from North America who they send on an expedition for week and a half to 2.5 to 3 weeks. I was pretty fortunate. The one that I was selected for was to go spend some time down in Antarctica. So I got to spend 2 weeks down on the White Continent, bottom of the world, working alongside National Geographic explorers, photographers, and really just, taking or learning about a place that the second I got down there, I realized was pretty much the exact opposite of Kentucky in just about every way imaginable. A little bit more about that expedition. It wasn't just a chance for me to go and just see stuff. It was a teacher fellowship. So the idea behind it was I was meant to go and then from that experience, take it back to my classroom and figure out a unique way that I could share that environment with my students and give them a chance to, learn more about the things that they can do in Kentucky to, one, protect a place like that, but also how, those two environments play together.
Yeah. I wanted you to just expand on that because I think it sets the tone for the rest of this podcast, is that you are a lifelong learner and you are always looking for innovative and intriguing, interesting ways to take social studies content and make it relevant for your kiddos. And I think that experience probably fueled you with this new energy and some new ideas that you probably brought back to your students.
Well, Antarctica is literally the furthest distance that you can get, right? And so I guess you could say, before I left, I had my students do some research just on the continent. And I said, guys, I want you to come up with some questions that you would like me to find the answers to when I'm down there. But we talked about how the questions have to be something that you can't just Google and have the answer pop up. Like it has to be those inquiry-based, those how, those why questions, those questions that, you've got to do a little bit of digging before you figure out the answer to. So, each of them went and did it. They kind of wrote them down for me. Some kids typed them out, I printed them off, but I took them all down there. And then what I did, right, because originally my plan was to try to figure all this stuff out for myself, realized that I was not an expert when it came to Antarctica, other than, hey, I think that's a penguin, that's some type of whale. I'm not sure which kind. But, I realized when I got down there that there was a community of explorers and photographers that could answer these questions for my students. And so what I did, I just, held the camera right up to them. I asked them first, hey, I know that you're an expert on whales. Would you mind, one of my students here, I'll just call him Bob, would you mind taking 5 minutes and could I record you answering his question because it would make his day, right? So all the explorers, photographers, and these are people from all around the world, like people who they spend their life researching Antarctica, spending time, looking at penguins, or some of them had even done stuff up in the, the northern Arctic region, like working with polar bears. And so they took the time to, one, answer my students' questions, but they also addressed them by name, right? So when we came back, I uploaded those videos to, we use an app called Flipgrid. Not sure if you're familiar with it, but, I uploaded the videos to our class Flipgrid, and I directed them, hey, those questions that you had? Yeah, I wasn't really smart enough to figure out the answer, so I found some experts who could answer these questions for you. Yeah. So now, like, they have this, not only this place that they can go, and they still visit it, by the way,
Mm.
you know, that this spot that they can go where, one, they can find the answer to their question, but they can actually see these, you know, explorers answering the questions while penguins are behind them, or standing on the deck of the National Geographic Explorer as an iceberg flows by, you know. And it was one of those moments where I realized that, yeah, it was 20,000 or 20 plus thousand miles away, but even though we were distant, we were still able to connect, you know. And to me, like, if you want to talk about like how an experience like that can really connect to kind of what's going on in education now, you know, yeah, my students now, instead of being 20,000 miles away, they're 2 miles away, right? But I'm still not able to see them. So, you know, it kind of shows you how, if you know how to use these tools in the right way, and again, I'm no expert, I've just been doing it for 13 years. I'm kind of like, you know, Bill Murray in Groundhog Day. You've just done it so many times. It's like, oh, I know where to click. I know how to get that to you. But it's really helped make this transition to distance learning a little bit easier. So I've been trying to show a lot of my teachers at my school, sharing stuff through social media, just, you know, some tips and tricks that can hopefully smooth this process over for a lot of them.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about how you began that process? I know you and I talked about, you had this idea that you started to develop over the weekend prior to the dismissal, that you brought back and you shared for feedback with your peers in your administration. So talk about kind of that role that you serve in your building, and then the platform that you designed.
Yeah. So, you know, in addition to being fifth grade teacher, again, I'm in my classroom from 7:15 till about 3:30, 4 o'clock every day. I'm also the school's technology coordinator, which most of the time means that, you know, if student Chromebook goes down, I walk into the room and turn it off and turn it back on again, and then it seems to be working. Or, you know, if there's some workshops or something that needs to be done, I can run a couple of those after school for teachers who are looking for like some tech training. But anyway, so when the announcement was made that, you know, I think it was Friday the 13th here in Lexington, or I'm not sure exactly the date, that, you know, we were going to be off of school for a significant amount of time, I quickly realized that, you know, students and parents are going to need to have something or some place that they can go where, you know, it's almost like a space where, if you're a kindergarten teacher, if you're a kindergartner, if you're a third grade parent, or even a fifth grader, like, hey, where do I go to see my stuff? Where do I go to connect with my classmates? Where do I go to just see, you know, what school was like? So what I did that weekend was I went and I just quickly threw a website together. Again, I didn't spend too much time, you know, necessarily perfecting it, because I figured, like, okay, I'll have some time to try to make it look as good as it can. But, you know, I spent a few hours that weekend designing it, putting some basic apps and stuff on there, adding some little, you know, I guess you could call it like things to bedazzle it a little bit, you know. And I had a call with my principal and the assistant principal the following week and said, look, here's what I built. I can actually build this for the entire school, right? And so what I did was I put a site together, and actually, can I screen share real quick?
Absolutely.
Is that okay?
I was hoping you would. Yeah.
Yeah. Hang on 2 seconds here.
Yeah.
Where I'm going to do that thing where I say, can you see my screen? Because that's what you're supposed to say, right? If you're playing along at home and you're doing, like, you know, Zoom call bingo, I guess, you know, this could be a square for you. Hang on, I'm going to just share my whole desktop screen here. All right, so can you see my screen?
Yes.
I'm supposed to ask that, right? Sorry, so this is the site that I built. And, you know, my principal every day has been recording, for example, like a YouTube video. And they're quick 1 to 2 minute, you know, just videos of one, just so that way they can still see his face. But, you know, like the one for today, it's really cute. He's just talks, hey guys, I know you might be finished with your work for the day, but here's some things that you can do to help your parents out. And in this one, you know, he's talking about, like, hey, you can do the dishes, you can sweep, you can mop. You can imagine, as a parent yourself with kids at home, you're like, sweet, I love that the principal is having them do that. You know, some days, like one of my favorite ones that he put together It was literally just him. He's like, you know, don't know if you can hear that or not, but I'll mute it. But he just called it things you can do at home if you're bored, and it's just like, you don't need to go out. We know that a lot of you are stuck at home and quarantine. So here's a quick little video, grab some rubber bands and boom, you can have some target practice, right?
Yeah.
But just stuff like that on there just to help kids feel connected. So that way they can still see their principal's face every day. They can still put that together. I'll show the site for students kind of here in a minute, but we also have on there, we do something called Dear Abby at our school. It's drop everything and read a book all by yourself every day. The SAM is subtraction, addition, multiplication, and addition. Normally we send home a paper copy of that for announcements, but we just built a simple digital version of it. Hey guys, we still want to see what you're reading. We still want to make sure that you're keeping up with your addition, multiplication, all that stuff. And then down at the bottom for parents, we put a link to, if you need food service, hey, here's all the locations around Lexington that you can get it from. If you need anything from the FRC, if you want to talk to the counselor, if you have any questions, right? But the whole point was, rather than having, 17 different places that people go to find this information, I just wanted to build a simple hub that, as a parent, you can go to. And if you have a kindergartner, hey, you can click on the big kindergarten button and you can go, and the teachers are every single day upgrading this with pictures of kids, silly songs that the kindergarten teachers have put together. I'm sorry, it's not loading the fastest right now because we're on the Zoom call. But then every single day they're kind of posting just the assignments that they'd like their students to be working on. Again, one thing that our school's been really good at, I know that for some of this distance learning stuff, there's teachers that, okay, it's 3:00. You've got to have all your assignments turned in by 3:00 or blah, 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 blah. You get no credit. Well, our school, we understand that, if you're a parent and you've got kind of multiple things going on, it might be really hard for you to get to make sure that your kids' work is done by a certain day. So, we're just kind of setting all of our due dates for these assignments by the end of the year. We're trying to be as flexible as we can with kids, trying to give them as much space as possible to kind of succeed, right? Anyway, so we've put these sites together as just a place that kids can go, parents can go, where they can see okay, here's one, how I can stay connected to my child's teacher. More importantly, here's a place we can go where we can stay, where our classmates can stay connected to each other, because, we're doing those meet calls, we're doing those Zoom calls. And, if you want the link to it, boom, we'll post it on there every day. You can hop in. We'd love to see you.
Inside of that, because I went on and kind of peeked around a little bit in the last couple of days, can you talk about how you even incorporate those teachers who teach specials at your school?
Oh, yeah. Because, we also understand that for some kids, reading, math, science, social studies, might not be the highlight of their day. And so our specials team, right, they've also went and designed a site. And every single week, again, we're recording this, today's Friday the 17th, but every single week, I'll jump down to our music teacher here. The teachers have gone in, and again, internet's a little bit slow right now, so it might be tough to kind of click through the slide here. But every single week, the teachers have gone in and created for each grade level an assignment, or just, an activity rather, that they can do from home. Our art teacher, again, I apologize that the Wi-Fi is kind of a little slow here, but they've shown examples, they've recorded YouTube videos. Hey kids, if you miss music, well, here's a video of, me walking through how to, play. I don't know, I was trying to think of one. If you have a piano at home, here's a simple song that you can learn. If you want to do some karaoke, here's some stuff that you can do. Our art teacher, hey, if you're in kindergarten, this week we're learning about polar bear landscapes. cool, let me show you 2 videos that you can do that you can use to draw these just using stuff around your house. Our tech teacher, our STEM teacher, even our PE teacher, because they get that a lot of kids are just literally sitting, some of them are sitting at home literally doing nothing, right? And so they're trying to provide them as, it's almost like a choice board, right? Where it's like, kids, we understand that you probably will not do every single specials activity every single day, but we want to make sure that we provide you with as many different options and opportunities, so that way if you find that one thing that you can do, you can stay connected to not just your regular academic stuff, but also those special areas that you love so much.
Yeah, thank you. So obviously your admin team approved the plan and the platform, and
Yep.
everyone's working from it. How do you deal as a school with those families who may not have had or have access to devices?
Well, I think that's the important thing. That's kind of like the big question, right? And the one thing that one thing I was really happy that my district did is they didn't from day one jump right into these non-instructional days where, the expectation was like that Monday, hey guys, we're going to start to looked at it like, okay guys, we're going to say that, these first 5 days, these are like snow days. And then the week after that was spring break. Right. And so, it's I jokingly call it spring break because nobody was going anywhere. So we all knew, I kind of almost wish we didn't do it because we could be getting out 5 days earlier, but that's for another discussion. But anyway, so our district said, look, you all have 2 to 3 weeks, right? And in those 2 to 3 weeks, this is your time to one, as a teacher, get those devices in kids' hands who need them. And our district, again, I know this is not the same across the country or across the state, but our district said, look, if a student needs a device, send it home. Just send it home, get it in their hands. Obviously, make sure that, parents sign this simple piece of paperwork, and we'll sort out whether it comes back later. But, for the good of the child, the most important thing is to get that device in their hands. And our admin team across the district realized, the second that they realized that schools were going to be closed. And so, we spent 2 to 3 weeks just as teachers, one, calling parents, emailing parents. Some teachers actually drove to the kids' houses and left them in, hey, hi, I'm outside your house now. Here's the Chromebook, please take it. Right. And even doing things like making sure that there was equal access to internet. Right. Because that's when my friend Ken Shelton talks about what he calls tequity, right? Not just making sure that there's equity with education, but, with everything being digital now, you also need to make sure that kids have equal access to Wi-Fi. If we need to call a company like Spectrum for you to make sure that we can get, your family access to the internet, like you tell us, we will do what we need to. And our school has just been so resilient with making sure that every student in every class is able to access, some of this digital stuff that we're giving them. But again, that's not to say it's all digital though, because just like in the classroom, I don't want my students sitting down staring at a Chromebook for 7.5 hours a day. Like I want them up and moving, right? So we also sent home we gave every kid a book, their math books, they took those home. And so that way they still get a mix of, doing things that are digital, which we know, some of them, that's all they want to do. But we also wanted to, just for the ease of parents who, sometimes logging into a site is difficult. We also wanted to, hey parents, it's on page 487. You can answer, have your child answer the 5 questions on there. So yeah, I guess in summary, it's not perfect, but I think when you look at this as a crisis teaching, I think just teachers across the state and across the country are really doing everything they can to make sure that one, to be understanding of every student's situation, but also just making sure that the students are able to keep up with their learning as best as possible.
Yeah, you had said to me, I wrote this down, one goal is to get kids to where they need to be with as little clicks as possible.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. And that's
really
the,
is also just barriers, right? Like I
yeah.
think you could substitute that word. You just want it to be easy for your students and for their families.
Yeah. And, we put analytics, sorry, this is the nerdy part of the conversation here, right?
Right.
But, I put analytics on the website because I was interested. I was like, okay, well, how many people are actually visiting, this virtual site that we put together? And so every day I'll go in, I'll just kind of check the previous days, and we're getting between 700 and 800 hits a day, right? And if you realize, like, most websites, if just like a teacher's site, you might get 5 or 10 a week,
Right.
and a lot of times it's just up there for show. But, we're able to go because, again, we're not perfect by any means, but, I was really proud of our staff that we spent those 2 weeks making sure that every single day parents knew where to go, and we're still sending, we're trying not to overbear parents with emails, right? But what the teachers are doing is every day at between 5 and 6 o'clock, we're just sending a quick email. Hey, parents, today went great. Don't forget to have your child, log in tomorrow. And by the way, remember all the assignments for the day, they're posted on this site, but here's all the assignments if you'd like your own copy of it, right? And that's how we're kind of keeping that daily communication going. And those emails are being collaboratively written by grade level teams. So that way, when that information is sent home, it's the same things going to every student at each grade level.
I love that. We're going to talk more about community. One of the things that triggered for me was when you talked about the YouTube streams.
Yeah.
That you guys do. And one of the things you said is like you have 29 students in your class, but you had like 40 something check-ins, I think, for one particular.
Yeah.
Can you talk about
so
how you use those to really to keep kids engaged, right? Obviously, but it's also begun to build this community piece.
Yeah. So, just the nice part about social media and, learning how to kind of navigate like the world of Twitter is if you just put out, hey, I'm a 5th grade teacher. I'm looking for an expert on the solar system. Does anybody want to hop in and just do a quick like YouTube live stream? Like, guess what? Those astrobiologists, those planetary scientists, those naturalists, they're also stuck at home right now and looking for stuff to do. So we've had 2 live streams so far. One, we actually had Dr. Tanya Harrison, who worked on the Mars Curiosity rover project. Like, she was the one who was controlling the camera, like the one who said, like, yeah, see that like Martian dust storm over the year? Yeah, take a picture of that. Like she had a TED Talk. She has her own Wikipedia page, for crying out loud, right? I mean, when I shared that with my students, they're like, oh my gosh, we are totally watching this. So we had her just kind of on a YouTube live stream. We didn't want to do it through just a regular Zoom call, mostly because, if you've ever tried to have a Zoom call with over 30 people, it can get a little overwhelming. Mm-hmm. So we kind of ran it through YouTube, where it was me and her and kind of like a question and answer kind of thing. And then she did like, a little 20-minute presentation for the kids that they were just blown away by. And they had like the chat stream going on the right. They're like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. And then, we were doing for our science unit, we were studying the solar system when we left. So we also had a astrobiologist who actually worked, it's kind of another Mars connection, but she actually lived in a biodome for a year, like the people who like were like the Martian, like that kind of stuff. Like, so she did that for a while, talked about her experiences, and did a little slideshow on the actual scale of the universe and how it's so much bigger than we think. But again, these are like world-renowned scientists who work at NASA, who work at Stanford, and they're here talking to a group of 10 and 11-year-olds who are asking questions like, what does NASA mean? Well, cool. Let me jump in and answer that question for you, right? Because you still need that base knowledge. Because it's, is what I found when we were doing a lot of these live streams, like the kid would ask a question and then the parent, like as the kid would say, I'm sorry, my son typed. I said, no, it's fine. Please, please, please let them ask those questions because everybody's got to enter this somewhere. But anyway, so just those kind of things, right? And one thing that I've learned kind of through this whole remote teaching experience is that, one, just the scientific community, just kind of that realm of experts, they're stuck at home too, but they're also willing to just kind of hop in and just help out where they can. So, it's that whole kind of we're all in this together mentality, but it's really provided a great, unique experience for a lot of my fifth graders.
That's awesome. It had me thinking about how speaking and listening is kind of a non-traditional approach to speaking and listening. So I heard you say that kids are able to, have this threaded conversation. And then I heard a second piece. They're using that threaded conversation, that speaking and listening, to engage with vocabulary, right? And to aid in comprehension. So talk to us a little bit about how reading, writing, speaking, listening, vocabulary has translated over into how you plan lessons for your students during NTI.
Well, what's unique about like those YouTube live streams, right? It's not like because if I were to bring Dr. Harrison to my classroom, she would just talk, take questions and go. But the fact that it's on a YouTube video, right? The students, it's the kids can watch it over and over and over and over again. And one, it gives them more of an opportunity to kind of develop those type of questions that they want to ask. Because you better believe the next day, like I posted that, because not every kid was able to watch live. Like, sometimes parents, they only have, a certain number of devices at home and the kid might not be able to watch live. But hey, I was posting that to the class stream the next day. Hey guys, make sure you watch this. And then, hey, there's a spot right here for questions. Can you do me a favor? And after you watch this, type in some questions and I can, she volunteered to answer a lot of those questions for them afterwards. So just being able to send that to like my astrobiologist friend. And she said, sure, I'd love to be able to help out with that. So giving kids, I think, more time to process like the types of questions that they want to ask, as opposed to kind of being in that traditional, 29 seat classroom where, you've only got 7 hours in a day. And hey, if I'm standing up here, anybody have a question? Okay, you, the same kid who answers every question. Well, cool. Now you have more time to kind of process. And it's really given, now since every kid knows how to access and get to where they need to, it's really been a unique opportunity for a lot of those students who've never felt like they've had a voice to kind of process the type of how they want to contribute to the classroom. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you hear that squeaking just now?
I didn't. Is there a mouse in your house?
Yes, actually I have 2 pet rats and they...
Scabbers, are the names Scabbers? They have to be named Scabbers, right?
Fossil and Frosty.
Okay, good enough.
Yeah, they're in some sort of battle in there. Oh my gosh, sorry about that. Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. I'm a person who always like tells my kids and the teachers and the students that I work with, it's like process sometimes is more important than product, but it's always as important as product. So I love what you said about giving kids that process time to really, for that reading, writing, speaking, and listening part. So thank you for that. I also want to talk about another way that you build community. And I just happened to know this because I'm your Facebook friend and I had seen a post about it. But these like breakout room sessions that you're doing. Yeah.
So, when you assign work digitally, there's some kids that they're just able to do it quicker, right? And it's 9 o'clock in the, you assign it at 8 in the morning. By 8:59, hey, Miss Piercey, I'm done with everything. And you're like, no, you're not. Then you go and look, oh crap, you really are. You've got everything done. So I've always loved like the breakout rooms, like the puzzles. And if you've ever done one of those before, but it's you pay $20 and they lock you in a room and you have to, work together as a team to find the key that gets you out. But I've always been fascinated with like, okay, well, if you were going to create something like that digitally, like what would that look like? So, I started to think about that a little bit, and I, just through some of my like coding stuff that I've, my little free time, I was like, I think I know how to build like almost like an escape room kind of puzzle on this virtual site that we put together for our school. So what I did was I hid a link. If you get bored, you can go and check it out yourself. Just click the Y in my last name and it'll pop up. But when you click that link, it opens up this big blank map, and it's got a big question mark at the top. And, I didn't want to tell my students about it. I just kind of put it on there and said, look, we might be out of school for a year for all I know. Let's just put it on there and see if somebody stumbles across this and maybe they start asking about it. And then, in my mind, I'm like, well, maybe that one kid will start to look through it. So, a few days go by, nobody really mentions anything about it. And then about the second or third day of remote teaching, I noticed in the classroom stream, a student, I'll just call him Bob. Bob's like, guys, I found this on the virtual site. Does anybody know what this is? And he pasted a link to it. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. This is going to be great. Because it was Saturday, they didn't have any work to do. So I'm like, oh, So, I like started to like antagonize them a little bit. I'm like, I don't know, guys. I don't know if you can figure out what this is. Adding those comments on there. But anyway, so on that map, there's like a secret button that they can click, which then takes them to this new puzzle that then takes them to this new puzzle. And by this point, I opened up this breakout about 3 weeks ago. And by this point, I'm already about 30 layers deep in it, and they're slowly making their way through it one day at a time. We started doing, I have like virtual office hours with my class every afternoon from 1:30 till 2. And it's just a time, it's not something official that they have to attend, but if they just want to hop into the virtual call and just say hi or ask a question, they can. And pretty much every day for the past week when they've hopped on the call, it's, okay, Mr. Piercey, I found the site with the dancing hamsters, but I can't figure out how to get past these dancing hamsters. I think it has something to do with the latitude and longitude on this Google Earth file that you've. So it's just kind of turned into this massive, like, it's like a subplot in a movie that's going on. So like every day they'll work to get their work done by like 9 or 10 o'clock. And then the rest of the afternoon is them just spent like, sharing links. And some of them apparently, like on the call today, one of my students is like, well, I had a 3-hour call with, so-and-so the other night, and I think we figured out where to go next. I said, cool. Okay. You guys are, and I'm sure some of their parents are like, thank God it gives them something to do around the house other than to do stuff. But it's been fun. And, as a teacher, it's sometimes it's these little types of things that keep you sane, because just going through the rigmarole of, okay, send, post, submit, send, post, submit, here's the assignment, go. Like if I knew that I had to do that every day for the next 45 days or whatever it is we have left in this virtual school year, I might go insane. But just me, like for my well-being, hey, okay, I've got the assignments done. Let's antagonize some fifth graders a little bit and design some more puzzles. So it's been pretty fun. They're digging it too, which is kind of the whole point.
Yeah, and it just continues to build that sense of community. I mean, if they're spending 3 hours on a telephone call, Bob and John trying to figure it out, how beautiful is that? The other thing that you do well is you develop relationships and friendships with your students, right? And so you have this online place that you're doing that, but you also, my doorbell, Amazon's here.
Ding dong.
The other thing that you do is you pause to write to your students. So can you talk about that and the value added in doing it that way?
Yeah, there's still something to getting snail mail. right? There's still something to getting something that was hand delivered to your front door from you. And I am definitely not the only teacher who has been writing notes to their students. I think, or just, going and visiting my class, obviously like from a safe distance. I think of my son's kindergarten teacher, on the day before Easter, she woke up. Kindergarten teachers, man, they're a whole nother breed. Like I'm convinced that if you teach kindergarten for 5 years, they should give you an honorary doctorate. Like it's just, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But anyway, so my son's kindergarten teacher, on the day before Easter, she emailed us ahead of time and told us what she was going to do. But she went to every student in their class. My son's in that class too, and hid an Easter egg in their front yard. Right. And then she ended up putting like a little note on the door that said, "You've been visited by, Miss Stevens and the Easter Bunny. There might be something in it you might like." It's just candy, But when my son saw that, like he immediately like busted the door open. He's running outside. And of course, like my daughter hears that there's candy outside. So now she's running around trying to find the egg. It's just doing things like that, obviously from a safe distance, those kind of unique things that really help stay connected. Because the virtual stuff's cool. Like it's cool to see, like, being honest, Ashley, it's cool to see another human. I love my family, right? I really do. I love seeing them every day. But, there's a reason why people are socially, after their day's over, like hopping on Zoom calls with their friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And kids need that stuff too. So whether it's face-to-face or, sending them a letter saying, taking that time to write, "Hey guys, I miss you." Like that's something that a lot of teachers are doing.
Yeah, thank you for that. The last part of our time together is really kind of a reflection piece. Not that you haven't been, because you have been, but kind of some lessons learned and how this translates now back into when we go back into that traditional setting, right?
Yeah.
What will be the same? What will be different for you and your students?
Well, if, again, we're still scheduled to go back May 1st, looking at how maybe by the time this airs, like they might have canceled school for the rest of the year. I don't know. But I guess there's two big lessons. There's the obvious one, like the equity piece, right? I think schools now have realized, like, oh my gosh, we need to do a much better job of making sure that all of our students have equal access. I don't know if that means that like Wi-Fi should be a free right for everybody, but if you look back and like think about how much easier this would be if a lot of teachers knew that, okay, I can easily connect with my students, I can easily work from home, I can get this. Obviously, it's not ideal, but I think that's one. The equity piece is something that I think. Granted, we're still in the crisis time, but once this is all over with, I think there'll be a lot of reflection about, like, okay, what does this look like in the future? Like, how could we stop something like this from happening again, at least as far as the access points go? And the second one, it's interesting. If you go onto social media, there's a lot of teachers that are, making sure that there's devices in students' hands, and a lot of times when you think about that, you think like, okay, so are you only giving these devices to students who like maybe don't have an internet connection or don't have, don't have like a device? Maybe all they have is like, their mom might have like a cell phone or something.
Right.
And, obviously like students need that, right? The students in those type of situations, they need to have some type of device in their hand, and schools have been doing a great job about that. But I'll tell you what's been interesting. The parents who have been reaching out to me about checking out a Chromebook from school or checking out an iPad from school. It's just regular blue collar families, like, just middle class. And the reason why they need a device is because the parents are working from home too. And they all, they might only have one MacBook, one laptop between the 5 or 6 people in their family. And, when this whole crisis situation started, they might have thought like, oh, we'll be fine. We've got this one. But then they're like, oh, wait, we've got 4 kids and they're all trying to teach remotely. We need to get another device in their hands. and that definitely doesn't take away from the equity piece, but that's just been something interesting that has come to light. I'm wondering if next fall you're going to see a lot more school and school districts being a little bit more lenient as far as letting students take devices home. Right. If anything else, I mean, shoot, imagine if you knew that if every teacher knew that all their kids, knew how to log into a Chromebook at home. I think it would have made like the start of this a lot easier.
Yeah. You also said to me when we talked a couple days ago, this idea of how you want to educate and connect with the parents at the beginning of the year to kind of troubleshoot some of these tech issues. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah. That first week of school, like one thing I've learned just to include in every email, just put a form in there, link to a form, or just, hey guys, reply to me. These are the 5 links we're going to be using this year. Can you do me a favor and this week, make sure that your child, one, knows how to log into them at home, that they know their password. But I have had a few parents that, hey, Bob doesn't seem to know his password. It's like, well, just so you know, he types it in every day at school. So don't know how he's forgot that little aside there. But there's still something to that, right? Those first couple of weeks of school, making sure that students know how to keep that learning going once they leave the classroom. Again, I'm not a huge proponent of homework. I feel like kids should be reading every night. I think that's important. Elementary kids should be, practicing their facts. They don't necessarily have to have 75 problems to do. But I also know that there's sometimes when, hey, a kid might be like, hey, I started my opinion letter today. I'd love to be able to work on this at home. Well, cool. Well, your mom told me that you know how to log in at home. So just do me a favor. When you go home, you can log into Google Classroom. You can do it there. So again, that's something that I've kind of always done, is to make sure that, especially, you think of like scaffolding, right? To kind of build that at the start of the school year. So that way, when it's January, I don't have to spend 2 weeks or, a week teaching them how to use a tool like Google Earth. I know that back in August, I did like a little basic activity that they know the ins and outs of it, and they not only know how to do it in the classroom, but if they want, they also know how to do it at home on their own devices too.
That's beautiful. That covers everything we had talked about. Is there anything lingering in your mind, closing thoughts or reflections that you want to share?
I think the big thing that's come out of this, and I've noticed a lot of admins in kind of their messages that they send, whether it be things that they post on social media or like videos that they'll send, or like, official not publicity, just kind of those public emails that are sent out. I mean, in every single one, they've always done a great job of saying, look, our teachers are doing the best that they can. We know that you as parents are doing the best you can, whether if you're a single parent home, or if you've got 9 kids at home and 2 adults trying to manage all that. I think that everybody realizes that this isn't ideal, and as much as I love technology, it's obviously making this a lot easier. And that's not to say it's simple by any means, but it's definitely made like this remote learning thing a little bit easier. I mean, I can't imagine like when I was in 5th grade, like what this time would have looked like. Like, would they have just canceled school and be like, hey guys, sorry, you're done. Sorry, see you later, bye. Or would it have been
actually, what you said to me is you wondered if you would stay home and play Nintendo Mario Kart for 12 hours a day.
Yeah. Yeah, 10-year-old me, there's definitely a chance that I would have just spent 10 hours playing a Nintendo. But again, that's another story for another time. We can talk about that another time. But anyway, but all the admins have realized that this situation isn't ideal. And hopefully it's making a lot of other teachers, even like myself, who love technology and who love the things that it's able to bring into your classroom, realize that it's not a fix-all, right? It's not something that while it changes education, it can't be the only thing that's changing it. There's got to be a mix or a healthy mix between things that you do digitally and going on a nature walk, or just going out and just checking out, okay guys, today we're taking a field trip to this car plant because we want you to see, like, here's some types of jobs, here's this stuff kind of in action. So there definitely needs to be a healthy blend of both.
Thank you. So I know there are going to be people who hear this podcast and super curious about you. They want to learn more about you and how you do teaching and learning during this time and then beyond. So do you mind to share your ways for people to see you, follow you, reach out to you?
Sure. So I guess email is the best way. Like, if you have any questions, I'd love to follow you up. I'm at donald.piercey, Piercey, @gmail.com, probably the simplest way. I'm on Twitter. It's at Mr. Piercey, Piercey. I'm on Instagram too, although I really only use my Instagram for photos of my kids. So if you want to see my family, you can hop on there at Mr. Piercey. It's on there. But yeah, so I'd love to connect with you if you have any questions, or heck, if you are doing something similar, you have something that you'd like to share, please reach out to me, because I definitely love to even maybe connect my classroom to yours once this is all over with.
Thank you. And if you would like to learn more about the Collaborative for Teaching and Learning, you can find us on Facebook, Collaborative for Teaching and Learning. Our website is ctlonline.org. So those are two ways to find us. So Donnie, again, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being a voice for teachers across the state and across the country. And I'm super excited to air this podcast. And there will be more to follow in this series. So stay tuned, listeners. And thank you.
Thank you.